The first time I saw her, she stood alone in the middle of the highway, her head turned completely backward, smiling with a mouth that stretched far past where faces should end. I've been driving 18-wheelers since I was 20. I'm Choctaw and stubborn. My grandfather ran cattle, my mother ran numbers, and I run routes. Night driving is peace. No traffic, no heat shimmer, just the hum of asphalt and the quiet company of coffee. It's where the road shows you things no sunlit mile ever will. Years ago, I had a strange encounter, a shadow that clung to my trailer like oil. So when I started that run from Amarillo to Santa Fe, I did my rituals. Fresh air in the cab, St. Christopher medal on the visor, my daughter's friendship bracelet looped around the gear shift. She says it keeps bad vibes out. Laugh all you want, the bracelet stays. At mile 209, the fog rolled in like a living thing. It tasted metallic, like pennies do if you've ever been a broke kid who holds change in your mouth so you don't drop it. The heater suddenly blew cold. My fingers stiffened. The hair along my arms rose and my scalp prickled until I wanted to claw it. Headlights lit the white. Then her. She wore an old yellow sundress, hem filthy with road grime. Bare feet. All I caught in that first second was the wrongness of angles. Shoulders too high, neck too long, head twisted 180 degrees, chin pressed between shoulder blades like a perverse ballerina. Her smile split wider and wider, past the cheeks, past the ears. A maw grinning with small, even teeth, the size and shape of baby teeth, hundreds crowding together. I laid on the horn, braked, felt the trailer fishtail, smelled hot rubber and fear. When the rig finally stopped, she was gone. No thud, no scream, only fog remained. I sat with the engine idling, my heart hammering so hard the steering wheel trembled in my grip. Sweat slid down my ribs in cold sheets. Outside, something padded along my trailer, soft steps, then nails, like an animal practicing being human. My radio crackled. A voice I didn't recognize pushed through, thin and wet. "You left them behind," it said. I slapped the radio off so fast I jammed a nail, tasted blood. Mile 209 became untold. 2 weeks later, I was back on the same route. I meant to stop at the Valero for coffee, but I missed the exit. When the fog rolled in again, because of course it did, I was so tired I was seeing double. The bracelet on the gear shift felt hot to the touch. The heater was blowing cold again. I reached over and touched the metal. It went from warm to ice, like someone else was touching it from the other side. The figure showed up sooner this time. Not out there on the road, right there on the passenger seat. 1 second I was alone. The next, that yellow sundress was sitting where my daughter usually rides in summer, head tilted the wrong way against the seat back. Eyelids opened so wide I could see that pink ring inside her iris. Her pupils were just slits, and when she smiled, those baby teeth chattered, almost like wind chimes. I didn't scream, I just kept driving. Out loud I said, "You can ride until the next mile marker, then you get out." My aunt always told me, when something follows you from the river, make rules for the unseen. Sometimes they listen. She didn't. She inhaled. The cab filled with the smell of pond rot and something sweet like rotting fruit in August, when the air is thick and the flies are drunk. "What do you want?" Questions are always leverage. Her head rotated another quarter turn with a sound like a jar opening. She was almost facing the right direction now, except her face was backward on the skull. She whispered, not with breath but with the sound of pages turning, "You left them." And then I realized what story the road had dug out of me. Not the oil shadow years ago. The other one. The night my brother and I ran from our stepfather with only what we could carry. When we reached the interstate, I froze. I let my brother step ahead, and when the headlights bloomed, I didn't pull him back fast enough. He lived, he limps when it rains, and forgave me before I forgave myself. But mile 209 remembered. "I didn't leave him," I said quietly. I was only 12 years old. I could hear how small I sounded. My heartbeat filled the cab. My hands hurt, gripping the wheel. She leaned close until I could see the pores in the stretched skin around her eyes. Too many, too uniform, like she'd been printed. "We are the road you owe," she whispered, and her voice wasn't only hers. It was my stepfather's slur, my aunt's lullaby, the dispatcher's bored tone, my mother saying, "Drive safe, baby," and my own voice the night I learned to lie to myself just enough to sleep. At the next mile marker, she vanished completely. The fog dissolved as if someone had opened a window. The radio returned, playing a country song and then an ad for new tires. I drove to a truck stop, Sat in the stall and cried like a teenager until my throat actually hurt. I told my brother the next day. He laughed, gently, and said, "You always overthink. Roads are roads." But later he texted, "Don't take 209, use 12, just in case." Then, was it the yellow dress? People see her when the fog is bad. I called. He didn't answer. The nightmares began. Her in my passenger seat, cleaning baby teeth with a sewing needle. The head turned backward, staring out my window as mile markers passed, counting down to something I knew I couldn't survive. I saw a therapist in Albuquerque who used to be a trucker. He nodded as I talked, as if I were telling him the weather in Montana and he already had the coat for it. "Lots of folks meet their ghosts on the night road," he said, scribbling notes. "The road likes a debt, doesn't always want money." We tried EMDR. We talked about 12-year-old me. We didn't talk about wraiths exactly, but he said grief wears what you'll recognize. If she returns, make an offering. "What do I have?" I asked quietly. "I'm just a driver." "Time," he replied. "Stories, memories, roads behind you." The third time I hit mile 209, it wasn't fog, it was clear as a bell. Sky so full of stars I felt my skull expand just looking. I almost believed I'd imagined her. Then the bracelet seared my wrist. The radio died. The dash lights pulsed, dim, bright, dim, like a heartbeat trying to remember its next beat. She walked slowly out of the ditch and onto the road, her head correctly placed this time, but her arms were too long by a foot, and her fingers dragged in the gravel, sparking as she moved. She stopped in the middle of my lane and waited there. I slowed, braked, stopped. We hung there, measuring distance. I rolled the window down. The air was ice. I could smell juniper and copper. "You can ride to the next marker," I said. This time it was an offering, not a rule. She climbed into the cab like a spider folding itself human. When she sat, the seatbelt threaded itself across her chest and clicked. We drove. I told her about my daughter's bracelet, my brother's limp, my mom's cornbread, and the way I count telephone poles when I'm too nervous to sing. "You left them," she said again, but this time her voice was softer, almost like a question becoming memory. "I'm not leaving you now," I said quietly, not sure who I was talking to or if anyone was listening. At mile 210, she turned to the windshield, her mouth closed, becoming normal. A smaller human mouth formed where the split had been, like a scar healed wrong, then right. She put a hand, ice cold, strange, over my knuckles on the wheel. My heartbeat slowed, quiet enough to hear the tires on perfect asphalt. "Story," she whispered. And I told the last part, the one I never tell. When my brother limps, I walk on that side, so if he stumbles, he falls into me. I learned to pull back first, even when I'm scared. Now I count mile markers forward because forward makes me feel less hunted. The dash lights returned. The radio popped on, a preacher talking about debts. I looked over. The seat was empty. The bracelet felt normal. The heater blew warm. I drove to Santa Fe and delivered pallets of paper towels and ramen like a person who'd never seen a mouth with too many teeth, feeling oddly out of place and curious. I still avoid mile 209 at night when I can. When I can't, I roll down my window and tell the road a story about someone I didn't leave behind. I make room in the passenger seat, in case the night wants company. My sister thinks I need a vacation. My brother jokes I should charge her toll. My therapist says the only way out is through. Sometimes the road returns what it takes in the shape you can carry. Have you ever been visited? Ever watched the dark hitch a ride, showing you a face you didn't want to recognize? Share your story in the comments so we can band together and find refuge. And, beware. Don't ignore them. Folks who pretend the night isn't talking tend to pay in accidents and empty seats. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and follow us for more bone-chilling chronicles. Join us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky